everybody. I'm Skaji,
I'm Stevie.
and we're coming to you with our December edition of Tea and Tarot here from Books, Beans, and Candles in Birmingham, Alabama. We've got some stuff coming up.
Things and stuff.
Things and stuff.
Things
But
and
what
stuff.
we don't have coming up in December is an in-person Tea and Tarot event. And that's because we're getting ready for a visit from Krampus on December the 7th. From 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. He'll be here for photos. You can find more information about that on all our social media things. We're also doing a raffle. We got a big box, a little bunch of stuff, including some vouchers to a couple of classes we have coming up in the spring. Got a whole bunch of good stuff in it. And you can we're doing that drawing on December the 20th. New witchcraft classes will be beginning here at the shop at the beginning of January. The exact date hasn't been set yet, but early in January. And the big news is April 25th, 26th, and 27th, Christopher Penzak will be in town for a series of lectures and workshops. And he's a fantastic guy and really knows how to lead a workshop. Friday night's workshop is going to be Caradwin and the Cauldron.
Nice.
And Saturday and Sunday is a 2-day workshop on the Hermetic Kabbalah and its relationship to witchcraft. And it's going to be really great. And some of the stuff in the raffle box are vouchers to his classes. Did we cover everything?
I think that's everything upcoming.
Upcoming. All right.
On the calendar upcoming, so.
Well, this we are going to do for the month of December for our little podcast here. We're going to do the Ace of Cups. And I picked that because I have a thing that says that it's associated with this time of year. I don't know if it's true or not.
I always hear it's associated with autumn, so I guess it depends.
So with the Ace of Cups, we've got that, the aces, I see them as often the origin or the source.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that as in many of these as having a sort of source or origin, whether it's the cup or a fountain or a spring. And the Rider-Waite, the Smith deck was the most traditional one, and what we see there is the water coming out of it. Tried to find some good information on why there's a W on all of these.
Mm.
Lots of different ways of thinking about that. Some say it stands for wisdom. Some say it stands for Waite, the guy who conceived of this, even though he wasn't the artist. Also on these more traditional styles here, we got the three magic birds, representing an influx from spirit
Mm-hmm.
or from outside ourselves. But on this one, this is the Robin Wood deck. We don't have such a thing but the heart. That's that emotional side with the water. But an interesting thing is on these cards here, and even on this from your deck, there are 5 streams. And so there are the number 5 coming into it as 5 senses, 5 sources. There's lots of different ways to bring that number 5 into it. Which deck do you have here?
This one is one that I picked up, used here at the shop. It's called the Light Visions Tarot. I haven't really worked with it much, so it'd be like, it's a good time to kind of explore it and see what it looks like and what it's about. Here it really ties into that source water aspect, with it being a literal fountain, and kind of what we pull forth from the unseeable, from the unknown, and how we begin to ideally either work with it or feel through it. It does incorporate the oak tree, and in a lot of traditions you have that kind of association with either longevity or wisdom or kind of that stalwartness, so kind of depending on what avenue and kind of where you're pulling from. And again, we have the 5 streams element as well, and kind of this interesting incorporation of the kind of more ethereal, intangible with something that's a little bit more hands-on, which is nice. It's an interesting deck, so we'll see.
And so we have the pool down there,
Mm-hmm.
and we see that same theme passed through a little more abstractly here. And whereas we have the oak here we have a lotus, and those could be lotuses. This is the Tarot of the Moon Garden. And the lotus is often seen as the plant associated with wisdom, especially in Eastern traditions. In the Wildwood deck, we don't so much have that, but we do have a pine as opposed to an oak in the background, which is often seen as a sign of immortality and longevity. And then we've got this little crescent moon shaped boat thing here, and I'm thinking that that's more for its moon associations than its tiny little boat associations.
What is the spiritual association of a tiny little boat?
And the swan in the background. Looks like he's fixing to go after the
He's gonna fight.
Yeah. But the Ace of Cups is with that emotional side as a source or an origin, and in a lot of cases, like in this deck and in these two here, where has that floating, almost ethereal or from outside the self kind of approach. But it does speak to that origin of how things well up within us.
How they well up, and also especially with the hand kind of presenting of like, are you going to take it, or are you going to do something with it, and if so, what, question mark.
So,
yay, the aces.
Aces. I think we aced that one. I think Stevie almost got up and left.
Boo.
And in honor of Krampus coming to visit us in December, I have a spread that is Krampus based, but it's a little bit backwards. Because a lot of times, you see a spread where this is where we start, this is the advice and the things we do, and here's our outcome. Well, since Krampus, being the fella in some traditions that Santa Claus outsources the dirty work to, and he's the one that brings us the coal and the switches and carries us away in baskets if we've been bad, well, represents outcomes that maybe we wish to avoid. How not to get grounded. So in this spread, we're going to have 3 possible outcomes and that gives us a pointer. We might want to avoid something.
Right.
And what I'm doing with it is we have the physical side of things, whether that's health or in our job or something like that. And then we have the mind and the heart kind of as a single unit. And then that spiritual side of us, mind, body, spirit kind of thing. So we have outcomes to avoid, advice to help us with that. And then as we get further on, how we integrate those 3 things and move further down. So, and I'm kind of calling the coal, because it's a physical thing, it's associated with the body. And mind and heart, that's the switches side of thing. And the spirit, that's the basket. Krampus puts us in a basket and takes us away if we've been bad. And so some advice on this stuff. Man, this is looking kind of weird.
A little weird.
A little weird.
That's fine.
It's going to be okay. And then these 2 things, I'm running out of table. Probably should have tested this.
It's fine. He was like kind of halfway on top, and we'll scoot him up as we go. It's fine.
Yeah. And so these down here at the bottom, which you can't currently see, you'll see those in a second, are sort of as these things come in together for a single unified kind of thing. Now you could read these 3 associated with those, or you could read these 3 together. But starting up here with the body side of things as an outcome to avoid, with the Page of Swords, especially in the Robin Hood deck, I often call this the running with scissors card, because our little page friend here really seems to be in a hurry, rushing forward, maybe acting impulsively. So maybe slow down. Might be some advice on that. And the thing to avoid is having to rush.
Having to rush, and also with the page especially being inexperienced in this thing that you're trying to rush through, either claiming mastery of it a little bit preemptively, or you bit off more than you can chew. Also in this deck, it reminds me of this Vine where it's just like this kid and running around, and his mom's like, "What do you have?" He's like, "A knife, no!" And that kind of has that vibe. Put your knife down.
And here in the mind and heart, head and heart thing, the thing to avoid. Well, the Wheel of Fortune has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
So maybe the thing to avoid is that repetitious up and down.
Something more stable or consistent as opposed to like the life death kind of feeling that sometimes the Wheel of Fortune can carry with it.
And on the spirit side, we have the crotchety old Scrooge looking guy inside his little tower box there with his Four of Pentacles. So that really has that miserly kind of
Stop
thing.
being so cheap.
And well, and it being a spiritual side, we can see that maybe as related to holding on to things, not being willing to accept new truths.
And when you kind of like look at the three of those together, it has that thing of, you know, when in like the kind of mind part element of things, you have the Wheel of Fortune with its ups and downs. I think it becomes very easy to like either get used to it or at least to not really know what else to do, so you like cling on to how things have always been. It's very much, this is the tried and true method, we're not moving, even though the tried and true method is iffy.
So some advice for this, so with the Two of Cups reversed, which seems an unusual orientation for an advice kind of thing, but we have the Two of Cups, and there's this transformative stuff here. All of these symbolism here comes from alchemy. The advice for that kind of thing is maybe stick to some certain routines or some stable kinds of options. What do you got?
Well, the Two of Cups especially kind of has a thing of like not necessarily having to highly critique all of the relationships you have, even with yourself, but be a little more self-aware of them. If you're looking for a sense of stability, then you might have to really kind of reflect upon that as to, well, here's kind of the things that either aren't uplifting me, that aren't at least keeping me stable, and calling into question just what's lacking and what's not working here.
And with the Seven of Pence as well, a lot of times when this card shows up, it's all about reflecting and even culling or working in, he's working in his garden. But as a reversed card here, it very much has a more active kind of feel to it. So the way to avoid the ups and downs is to actively try to work with those repetitions and patterns to try to allow for those changes.
Even though it's exhausting, like the Seven of Pentacles is a lot of hard work, and so having to kind of fight the burnout, but also keeping to the bit a little bit. Like, sorry, keep working.
And here with the Ten of Cups, especially with this guy here, kind of, and then here it's a lot more open. So it's, kind of opening up the self and the spirit to those kinds of things. And we have like the little robin and a little blue bird of happiness up there. So try not to be so crotchety.
Make some friends, and also maybe offer and find people who can offer you different perspectives, different viewpoints, maybe even hands to help you through some of this process, but you need someone else.
And these last three cards. So as these things start to come together, they can be read as this card as sort of a culmination of that, and this card as sort of a culmination of that. That's one way of looking at it when we wedge things down like that. So with our Six of Swords here, between these two cards here, and I love the Robin Hood deck because it may be hard to see on screen, but right here there's a sort of spectral figure. So the dude in the boat is not the one moving the boat. And so these adjustments here could very well be assisted by sort of, this has a very go with the flow kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And even though this is the element of air and that's our thought and stuff, it's got a very watery kind of flow aspect to it. What do you think?
Especially given that you have that Two of Cups and the Seven of Pentacles, both reverse, kind of feeding into it. The spectral figure kind of has that idea of you kind of really took that time and energy to reflect upon these emotional connections and kind of where they needed work. And so you have now not just extra hands, but you have a much more kind of clear path to work in a little bit. And some of that work is beginning to pay off and finally feeling like you're moving forward a little bit.
Getting somewhere.
You're going somewhere instead of just kind of feeling like you're cycling like a bar on like a computer or something. You finally get that opportunity to kind of begin moving and begin clearing the path in a way that feels a lot less like you're just pedaling and pedaling and pedaling.
And with this Seven of Cups reversed, it really has that sort of letting go of some daydreams kind of ideas, and perhaps becoming more emotionally aware instead of sort of daydreamy.
Especially with the sevens mirroring each other too, like working for nothing as opposed to finally working, at letting go of the kind of habits, the past, whatever, and beginning to eat the disappointment a little bit, having to look at letting go of either what you think are opportunities or things that are actually opportunities, whatever.
I don't want to eat the disappointment.
It sucks.
I would find that disappointing.
Yeah, you would. And kind of that's always kind of the tone that the Seven of Pentacles or the Seven of Cups can have to me, depending on how, of course, it presents in a reading, where it's, we're putting our heads back on and having to acknowledge that, like, some of this is bullshit, and having to sit with that, work through it.
And with our final card, which is sort of the culmination of all of this, we have the Two of Wands reversed. That weird little
It's weird.
result.
It is, but also it makes sense. Upright, the Two of Wands is cheesy. You got the world in the palm of your hand. You have all these options. You have all this kind of purview to really kind of marinate in what's in front of you. But that's also so much. Well, it's a lot.
And I see that with Wands. That's that change, that element of fire. And a lot of times I see this card, though, as it's not that I got the world in the palm of my hands, but it's I've got a globe. I'm planning my next steps. What's my next move?
You
Where
get
am
to
I going to
marinate
go?
in all these things. Yeah.
But as a reversed card, it almost has that work the plan position, arriving at a new place to start, and now it's time to put this energy to work.
You've narrowed your focus too, because sometimes the Two of Wands upright can be so enticing with all these potentials and all these things. So we narrowed our focus a little bit whenever it's reversed. We're still acting, we're still doing, we're kind of gearing up to begin doing those things, but it's not quite that like sometimes ominous thing of like there's so much on my plate. It's we've picked out what's on our plate.
And the interesting thing in this deck, in that the way that the card is done, although we see two wands, we really only have one in its place. So it's almost that choice kind of idea. Excellent. So, thank you, Stevie, and thank y'all. Look forward to seeing y'all in person in January again. First Friday night is Tea and Tarot.
Third, maybe?
Should be the third, which would be the first Friday on the 3rd at 6:30 right here. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Skaji.
And I'm Stevie.
Safe journeys.